Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of Salesforce Simplified. I'm your host for this week, Andy Whiteside. Got a panel with me. Got Derek Cassese, who's running the Salesforce practice at XenTegra. But more important than Derek, we've got Josiah Nisbett, who is running our nonprofit at XenTegra, a nonprofit serving nonprofit. Derek, I'm just joking. I'm gonna get back to you in a second.
All
Uh,
good.
but Josiah is the chosen one here in this podcast because Josiah is involved in a nonprofit, and today we're going to talk about nonprofits. Before we get into that, though, let me do the Computers for Community XenTegra commercial, and this applies in both cases. In this case, Computers for Community is the nonprofit spinoff to serve nonprofits of XenTegra. If you're a Salesforce customer and you're out there on the platform and you're not getting all the value out of the platform, which is pretty much everybody, because there's so much value in the platform. We are a partner here to help add value to that equation by helping both Salesforce and the customer be more successful. There's so much opportunity. We know this because we are a Salesforce customer who got frustrated with the lack of help and started our own practice, brought in Derek to do it. Josiah, do you feel like you're a nonprofit not getting the value out of the platform?
I think the platform is huge. So yes, absolutely. I don't think anyone's getting full value out of the Salesforce platform.
Yeah, and you've been working with Derek now for what, 3 months? And have you felt this uplift in the value you were getting out of the platform?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
all right, Derek, now it's your turn. You guys brought you brought a blog to us called Salesforce Nonprofit Cloud versus NPSP. When is it time to upgrade? Derek, I know this is near and dear because you're something about you makes you want to work with the nonprofits, which I know what it is, right? You're
Yeah.
compassionate for people. And you and I were at Dreamforce and we had this conversation over and over and over again. I don't feel like there's been a whole lot of progress out there. Derek, why, with Josiah's help, did you bring forth this blog to cover today around the nonprofit success pack moving to
Well,
nonprofit?
so real quick, Josiah's the one that actually picked this because he and I collaborate quite a bit. And I love the fact that this is the one that we're going to talk about because he and I have been going back and forth on this very topic for a while now. But to your point, what you just brought up, when we were at Dreamforce and we were talking to the nonprofits, it's extremely frustrating to me to hear the frustrations that many of them have because they're either getting subpar help or maybe they're getting too much help, which sounds weird. But what I mean by that is if you've ever tried to cook with 15 cooks in the kitchen, it doesn't usually work out well. And a lot of the nonprofits get donated time and they're left with a headache to manage. And so what we're trying to do is actually give the same quality of consulting that regular commercial customers would get, but for nonprofits, because they should get that. And I love the fact that I can, feel like I'm actually helping in a small way further their missions. So yeah, I really enjoy this whole aspect of what we're doing.
So we're going to get into the Salesforce nonprofit cloud, getting away from NPSP here in a second. But Derek, how is it possible that we're able to provide value-added service for nonprofits for Salesforce at a lower cost than we do for the for-profit businesses we work with?
How is it possible that we do that?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a couple different ways we can do it, but we have reach into a huge ecosystem of developers, some offshore, some nearshore, some US based, that allows us to get high quality Salesforce developers, architects, data engineers at a very good rate for nonprofits. And the key there is that this is the same resource that we would be leveraging for other projects. But what I see a lot is, oh no, we'll give you nonprofit rates, and then you look at it and it's $250 an hour. Mm-hmm. And like, it's just like, you can say you're getting nonprofit rates and then just turn around and give them the same rate you would give anybody else. And I feel like that's happening all over the place. So we stand by it. And I even shocked an AE at Salesforce when I said we can get down below the bar that she set from an hourly cost. So it's important to us that we aren't trying to make a whole ton bag full of money on this. We're trying to further the mission.
Yeah, it kind of all starts with XenTegra understanding that we're going to take the nonprofits out of our for-profit world. And if we do make any profit out of them, it goes into a nonprofit to go back and distribute to other nonprofits. There's enough corporate money to be made without needing to do it with nonprofits.
Yep.
All
100%.
right. So, Josiah, feel free to chime in along the way. You're kind of unique because you're very technical and you're very, I'll say neck deep. I was going to say knee deep, but neck deep in the same problem that the other nonprofits have. And I don't know that you guys have picked a time and date to make the move either. So you got a lot of value to add. But the first section, Derek, talks about wait. What is Salesforce Nonprofit Cloud?
Yeah. So, Josiah, why don't you take that first, and then I'll add.
Yeah, for sure. So what happened in the whole ecosystem here, Salesforce existed for a long time. Then the nonprofit success packet was launched as a managed package that almost every nonprofit I've talked to is in the nonprofit success pack historically. And then salesforce.org and salesforce.com merged as an organization. And then that now over the last couple of years, they've launched the nonprofit cloud that from all the conversations I've had and what I'm seeing is long-term future going to eventually replace the nonprofit success pack. But then I think for everyone that the kind of question is, what does that roadmap look like? How far out do I place that? So the nonprofit cloud is, unlike nonprofit success pack, not a managed package, but is a part of core Salesforce platform.
So
Otherwise known as the Einstein One platform right now.
And then brings in a handful of other tools from the platform that you don't have to add as modules like we used to do on the nonprofit success pack anymore.
So guys, I want you to talk about maybe some of the challenges with the NPSP. I'll give you mine real quick. I work in the core product on my for-profit side. Then I would jump over to the nonprofit side, and I didn't understand why it was slower. Is that a symptom of being part of the success pack?
Yeah. So some of that is a symptom of that, in that, so you got to, from an architecture perspective, when you're talking about a package being installed into Salesforce, it's essentially a customization that was built that gets loaded into the platform and adds objects and fields and Apex, which is the code that runs, but it's not the actual core. It's not the actual core platform. So you're adding stuff on top of it. And so there's kind of a layer there where you may not have access to everything that you would if you were built right within the core platform. So the change here is that instead of it being like a piece of software that's layered on top of Sales Cloud, it is a purpose-built cloud for the purposes of nonprofit. And so that means all the aspects of grant management, program management, fundraising, it's all standard objects and part of that cloud when you buy it, which is a very important piece. But performance, yes, probably a part of that, but not the entire story. That's kind of a loaded question, Andy, as you know, in the way that it's configured. But definitely the way that Salesforce is going, and that you can even tell with the announcement that Marketing Cloud is now on platform. It used to be, oh yeah, all these other things, all these other acquired pieces are all off platform, meaning that it wasn't on the same fundamental platform that everybody's using, and you had to integrate, and then things do slow down, performance hits. They're moving everything to this platform, and they're moving it all so that it can all benefit from being centralized.
So Derek, my comment about performance, what you're saying is performance plus maybe the configuration could be
Yes.
not optimal, and you take those two, combine them together, and you get an exponential result.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so did we cover the difference between what nonprofit cloud is versus the success pack? Do we think we're ready to move forward?
We hit some of it. Like Omni Studio is an interesting one. And And Omni Studio has a place in my heart because I worked in Omni Studio for about 3.5, 4 years at Salesforce. I actually just got the cert for that recently. And it's a very powerful set of features that just kind of goes, it was part of the Velocity acquisition that Salesforce made. It's got some really powerful tools in there. I mean, part of it was document generation is in there. There's another kind of version of Flow, where you can do like step-by-step OmniScripts. So the interesting thing that they put this in there because Omni Studio finds itself in the industry's clouds. So what it means is I feel like what they're doing is they're kind of lining up the nonprofit along with the industries, which are your finance cloud, revenue cloud, things like that. But it's a very powerful feature to have added in here, which I thought was interesting.
Josiah, any thoughts on that one?
No, I mean, that's big. That's aligned with a lot of the other things they're doing as they're moving it on board core platform. And, they've across the board shown that they've got a huge heart towards the nonprofits, just trying to give their 1+1+1 model. But just across the board, they're kind of bringing it all into one big platform instead of a whole pile of modules that are installed separately.
Is it fair to say that this is a good sign that Salesforce recognize the need to, I'm going to say it the way I mean it, but then I'm going to clean it up. First-class citizens, treating the nonprofits like a true first-class citizens, a first-class subscriber to the platform?
It's a step in that direction for sure.
All right, Derek, next section says life events and milestones.
Yeah, and what they're listing here, so Omni Studio is a feature function I talked about, and now what they're listing here are the objects, part of the data model. Data modeling, which is something every Salesforce customer should do, which is often overlooked. But life events and milestones would be part of this solution, along with account subledger, outcome management. Keep going down. And then account relationship center is interesting. So actionable relationship center. And again, some of this stuff is new. Even like I have not actually dug extremely deep in some of these new features that they've got in this cloud. But the interesting thing is that the functionality is automatically available on the core, which means all the other pieces of core now work with like accounts management, subledger, life events. So you can take advantage of that, multi-language, you can take advantage of all the automation, AI. So it's an interesting shift from where we came, where it was just like an install on top of Sales Cloud. And the other interesting thing, which I found unique to C4C, was that it creates this data model that's kind of like a person and a donor and whatnot. And if you want to go a different route, Josiah, you can probably talk a little bit about like unraveling that a little bit was not easy, right?
Yeah, so on the nonprofit success pack, it's all built around the household models. Whereas as soon as you create a contact, it's in the background going to auto create a household that associates to that person account. And you get a lot more tool sets around how you want to manage that on the nonprofit cloud. But yeah, Derek, like you're saying, like as soon as we started digging into that, there's that installed package has layers and layers and layers of automation that's running in the background every time you click anything. So the moment you create a contact, there's a before script and an after script and a save script that's all running. So I don't know from a optimization standpoint, but Andy, back to your question around the speed of operation, like that externally installed package has a lot that's running.
Yeah. Anything else in the life events and milestones that we didn't cover you want to cover?
So I think that's good for that.
Next section says, and this is where it gets kind of deeper here with this table. So what's the difference between them? So first section is functionality, contact and account management. We'll just kind of walk us through the table here as best you can describe it to explain when it shows up in one versus the other and how it benefits people.
Yeah, Josiah, you want to take some of that?
Yeah, let me take a crack at it and then unpack it more here. So like you're seeing on the right there on the table, Andy, is 3 separate modules to manage 3 separate aspects of how a nonprofit's going to operate. So we've got the nonprofit success package that's managing all of our donor accounts. But then we're going to do a whole separate installed module for our case management, a whole nother module for our program management. We'll do a whole nother thing for grant management. And that's where, as we kind of bring this into nonprofit cloud, we have specific account management around different data models on the same platform.
And so, Josiah, does that mean that in order to get, let's see, this one, it would take NPSP, PMM, and case management module to get what you would get out of the nonprofit cloud?
Correct.
So as the person who kind of demanded that our nonprofit use Salesforce in the beginning, had I known there was this much bolting of things together to get the desired result, I wouldn't have done it back then. I realized people didn't have a choice, and they had free licenses. So that was a big part of it. But knowing now that I've got to do a lift and shift to this other thing, to get to make it simplified, certainly concerning that we went this route in the beginning, but hey, we're there. And so are a lot of other people. And by a lot, I mean thousands and thousands of nonprofits. That's why we're having this podcast.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, it's important to also point out, like, it's not that the success pack is terrible. It's just that it's not like, it was time for them to make a change, just because it felt a little bit too rigid. Like, you had to fit within that model. To try to untangle that model didn't really work well. And then all the other pieces, right? So if you wanted to take advantage of some of the other features and stuff, you just had to pay for those to add them on, because they weren't part of the nonprofit success pack. So what they've done is they've created a cloud, dedicated cloud, that is part, you can see here, they're mentioning the industries. So you get the benefit of all the things that go into the industry clouds, like we mentioned, right? The Omni Studio, you get flow capability, business rules. And then they also call out that they went from the household account to the person account. And what I find interesting there is that they even give an example of the stuff that Josiah and I went through to try to untangle this. And that if you create, they give you an example, right? If you create a contact record in the success pack called Sam Supporter, there will be an account called Sam Supporter and then another record called Sam Supporter Household, which you may not want, but you pretty much had to do. And so now that household model is optional, which I think is really important.
Right. So let's see. So you have the table here. So do we want to just walk through the functionality piece real quick and point out what it is and the fact that it's included in nonprofit cloud, which it's going to make it simpler for people? Do we want to go through these one at a time, or do you want to just kind of summarize them, which you may have just done?
Yeah, I think we touched on. Josiah, is there anything in there that you think is really, really important from a nonprofit perspective to call out?
I mean, in the automation, it's the Omni Studios got brought back in. We've talked about that already.
Yeah.
Get that Apex flows and everything brought into the automations. So that right out of the gate gives access to some of those tools that a lot of the nonprofits that are only using the nonprofit success pack just don't have right now.
Yeah, and so somebody may be saying, all right, well, I hear Omni Studio all the time. Like, what is it? What do I even need it? And you may not need it, honestly, right? But what it allows you to do is create really, really nice automation screen flows for your users that are pixel perfect. And so, what I mean by that is that it's a really good user experience, and you can take somebody through a donor experience or whatever the process you may have. These tools are really powerful. Now you need to understand how to use them, which takes us to the next, kind of the next phase of discussing all of this, is that when you get here, it's not just like, let's move from, the success pack to the cloud and we're good to go, right? There's going to be some expertise that's needed, which is where partners like us and other partners come to help. But I think that it's important to sit down and at least look at this and determine whether or not it's something you want to start planning for.
Yeah. So Derek, it breaks it down into three. So the title of this section is Should Our Organization Make the Migration from Salesforce NPSP to Nonprofit Cloud? It gives three different scenarios. Number one scenario, current NPSP customer. Number two is current Salesforce customer not using NPSP. And third is net new to Salesforce, not a current customer. Let's talk about the one that's probably most common, which is for current Salesforce NPSP customers. Derek, if you had to spitball what percentage that is that 90 something percent of the current?
It's got to be. Yeah, it's got to be. Because if you think about it, right, this is free licenses. So Salesforce gives out free licenses to nonprofits. There should be an asterisk next to that because it's free licensing, but to do this successfully, you're gonna have to have some spend, right? And so, I joke it's free like a free puppy. Somebody gives you a puppy, it's not free. You've got all the expenses that go into taking care of it, which is no different here. But I would say that this is an extremely high number because that's where we've been until recently. And and just like some of our other podcasts, once you get ingrained in some of this stuff, it's very difficult to move.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah.
So help us walk through then the bullets here. So just quick, observance here. XenTegra's nonprofit, Computers for Community. We are in this state here where we're a current customer using NPSP. Can you just walk us through the bullets as to why you would consider let me just read it here. If you are an existing NPSP customer, here are some more reasons you might want to consider staying put and not making the move. So you want to walk through those bullets, guys?
Josiah, you want to take some of those?
Yeah, well, so we could go through each one of them, but really, what this is coming down to is this nonprofit cloud product is very new right now. So there's a lot of the features that aren't fully mature yet. There's a lot of the features that haven't been migrated over yet. So when you look at, some of the grant making, some of the case management, there's not a lot of documentation around the new product. There's not a lot of support around it yet. So it's just kind of this question of, do you want to be an early adopter, or do you want to kind of let it shake out a little more?
Well, and maybe we didn't. I know I didn't do a good job of this. There's a reason why the nonprofit NPSP existed, and that is because it was a unique workflow, and they were trying to help customers be successful for nonprofits out of the gate, not realizing they kind of maybe didn't give them the long-term future-proof solution by doing this, and now they've brought this into the core product.
Well, I think the nonprofit success package is a perfectly built platform for a specific use case, and it's absolutely fantastic for exactly that. When organizations start trying to grow and then use more of the platform and start integrating more tools, at some point they get kind of stuck in an old way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's have you ever driven by and seeing somebody mowing a lawn with a weed whacker? Have you ever seen that?
Yep.
I've seen that. Now it can get the job done, but it's not the right tool, right? And so you get to a point with any of these solutions where you start stretching that rubber band and it may do the job, but not what you're looking for. So I think that I do agree. It's got a place, and if it's doing everything that the nonprofit needs it to do and there's no issues, then you need to ask yourself, all right, does the nonprofit cloud have something that we could really leverage by moving to? And if that is the case, let's look at the effort to get there. If it doesn't have anything that you think you're going to benefit from today, then my recommendation would be to just hang out and let it mature a little bit, because these bullet items on this article list some of the things that aren't quite fully baked yet in this cloud, because again, it is a new one, relatively new. So they're calling that out right now, right? So address management is not currently available in nonprofit cloud, but on the roadmap. So they're letting you know in full transparency that if you're using that, you don't want to go. And so I think, this is the due diligence of determining whether or not it's time to go or it's time to wait. Obviously for, any net new customers, I think you're going to ask those same questions. Like, do you need this feature? Because if it's not supported, obviously you can't go. If not, this is the future. I mean, everything like Josiah said, I mean, everything that I've heard, like this is the future. They're gonna support the success pack, but if you want to follow kind of you know, follow the way that Salesforce is moving a lot of their products, this is going to be where you want to be.
Since this is the most, by far, largest addressable group, I'm going to hit them real quick. Address management, not currently supported. Customized customized roll-ups are not currently part of nonprofit cloud, but on the roadmap. Both these on the roadmap. Nonprofit cloud for program management and case management are different configuration, objects, models of these solutions. They already exist in nonprofit success pack. Current users may not see feature parity. Organizations taking advantage of volunteer for Salesforce V4S may have not been given an answer as to whether V4S will be with nonprofit cloud. That's a big one. That has to be a massive one right there. And then finally, Salesforce will continue to maintain support for NPSP indefinitely.
Yeah.
And that last one is the one that usually is the motivator for most people to have to move. They wait until support's getting ready to go away, and then they have to make a move. No claim that that's going away. Sorry, Josiah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that last bullet is part of the culture of Salesforce, from my perspective, is not forcing you to do something. Now, given, all right, somebody may say, well, they forced me to use multi-factor authentication. Okay, that's security.
Yeah.
But for the most part, even with the updates, you can choose not to leverage the updates. You can choose. I mean, I think it speaks to the integrity of them knowing their existing customers and knowing that this is not like a next finish migration. So.
And not saying that Salesforce would do that. Okay, we're going to have indefinite support, but we're going to be down to one guy on the support desk that goes on home on the weekends. Not to say they would do that, but my point is, it will get more and more limited as they want people to move over. It's a business at some point.
But yeah, and I think that you see it with all the products, right? Like they know, and I just got back from Trailblazer DX, and there was a session where they mentioned, we were talking about things that needed to be added to the products and stuff, and they keep crossing them out. I mean, it's a gigantic platform. They keep crossing out the things that are missing. So I think that in time, because they want to go this route, they'll make it so enticing that you're like folks that are staying on the success pack will make the decision to move because it'll be so enticing and these gaps will have been closed.
Right. So next section is for current customers not using NPSP. Does that mean these are customers that started off on nonprofit cloud?
It's customers that are maybe on like Sales Cloud, but doing nonprofit work out of it.
Got it.
And maybe rolled their own. So I think it's important. Let's geek out for just 2 seconds. Okay, the platform, Salesforce platform, is an application platform that's extremely powerful. It's like a gigantic box of Legos that you can build whatever you want. So the fact that they have this success pack means all they did was they got you to the 57th page on that build document, so you can start there instead of building everything yourself. Right. And then you start from that point and leverage all the data model objects, everything that they did for you. But you could very well have just said, now I'm going to do my own. And you create your custom objects, you create all the custom fields, you create all the custom actions, and you've got your own nonprofit cloud at that point. But it's yours forever because that will never get updated by Salesforce. But when they update nonprofit cloud 3 times a year, you get the benefit of all those feature upgrades. Right. And so that's the difference, is that you could be in a situation where you rolled your own, now having to make a decision on, so I just spent all this time and effort building my own stuff. Do I want to just bail on the custom and go to a purpose-built cloud?
Right. Which sounds painful. Sounds painful for the move and painful for the regret of rolling your own.
Yeah. I mean, there has to be a compelling reason to change for anything, right? I mean, you don't want to just change for the sake of change, in my opinion. So, and I think that this article is making that clear, that you want to go through and do the due diligence of understanding why you're making a change to this cloud at this point in time, I think is the key.
Right.
Would you agree, Josiah, on that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, every nonprofit's going to be in such a different chapter of their roadmap, but it's big
Yeah.
decisions.
All right, and then finally, for net new customers who are not current Salesforce customers, where should they start?
Yeah. So see how some of these are worded are interesting, right? Nonprofit cloud is advancing swiftly, capable of handling the vast majority, if not all, of what was achievable in the success pack. And it's even better in certain areas, but as we mentioned, there are gaps. And it's gonna again come down to those gaps. It's also going to come down to how aggressive does the customer want to be. Do you want to be on something that's been out for a long time and there's a ton of resources on and like videos and webinars and documents because it's been out for so long? Or do you want to be on something that's fairly new?
But where things are going.
Exactly. So that's a decision that would have to be made with the appropriate people that are looking at risk and looking at benefits and pros and cons. And that's something that we could certainly sit down and help with too. From a partner perspective, like let's sit down and talk about all your processes. What are you doing? What do you really want to get out of this? Let's not just cliche the terms that fall into nonprofit world, but what do you really want to get out of it? And then who's maintaining it? Like, do you have a bunch of admins? Do you have somebody that's an admin, but also not an admin? All that stuff is going to determine, I think, so, which way you go out of the gate, because I would not recommend anybody, and Josiah, you may disagree with me, but I would not recommend any company go with a nonprofit cloud that doesn't have a dedicated admin right now, because it's new.
Or a tightly integrated partner that's really going to help them all the way through it.
Right.
Yep.
Because I mean, it's gonna need some care and feeding, as opposed to the NSPS. The success pack has been out and is a little bit more set it and forget it ish.
Well, and there was a second point on one of those bullet lists we had that was, we don't have an answer yet around the volunteer hours. So if you're on the nonprofit success packet, you get access to a bunch of volunteer hours. And if you move to the nonprofit cloud, we don't know yet.
You do. That can be good and bad though, right? As we've talked about, in that, I mean, volunteer hours are great. Let me back up. That's great. But I think that you need to be careful that you don't have like 10 different people come into the org and 10 different design ideas. Right?
It's definitely not ideal, but there's certainly a lot of nonprofits that are budgeted into that reality. That sucks.
Which takes us full circle back around to the investment XenTegra is making in Computers for Community, where we're we're trying to help people in a lower cost, sustainable advisement first consulting model, and doing it for the sake of profits. We don't want profits. We want to have an impact, which is one of the reasons why we chose to do this podcast today, is to talk about the movement to nonprofit cloud and how it's not black and white at this point.
And, it'd be interesting too, to revisit this topic, in, I don't know, 10 months, something like that, just to see, like, to see how some of these things are moving.
Derek, at the rate it's going, was it 10 months, or I'm jokingly here saying this, 10 years?
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't know, right? And so I think with some of these topics that we do on this pod, it'd be great to just circle back at times and check in and see, hey, are we still where we were? Or have we made have we made progress? Because I think that's important as well.
Well, I want to highlight this. When it comes to the for-profit world, things get done, things move forward. I'm worried that in the nonprofit world, it could linger for a very long time because it's important, but things that are more profitable always end up being more important.
Yeah, I do think, and maybe this is a topic for another pod, but I think that there's a misconception that you can get the Salesforce free licenses and run Salesforce with no cost. And everything that from all the nonprofits that I spoke to at Dreamforce and, conversations I've had, there's got to be some spend in there to be successful with this. Salesforce is not a platform that can just be left alone. So that's just something I'm going to put out there that it needs to be understood that, and it doesn't need to be like $1 million, but there needs to be, an admin, there needs to be some type of an investment in this to make it successful.
Yeah. There 100% should be. And if you're not willing to, invest in that, you shouldn't adopt Salesforce.
And the other interesting tidbit there I'll throw out is that even if you buy a license or two of something, you are now a paid customer, of which gives you an account manager.
Yeah.
So just little
Worth
tidbit.
whatever that license cost you to have somebody representing you on the inside.
Yep.
Well, gentlemen, I appreciate the time. Josiah, you're the guest host here. Anything that we didn't cover as it relates to computers for community, nonprofits in this discussion?
No, we're here to help. I think everyone's able to hear that from Andy, from Derek. Just the heart is there. The organization is structured as a nonprofit, which kind of forces us to put our money where our mouth is on that investment of helping the nonprofits. All the money goes back into the community. Everything we can do is just from a heart posture of trying to take the success that we've seen and push it back into nonprofits that are doing good work.
I call it do good and good business all at the same time.
It's a beautiful thing.
Love
Gentlemen,
it.
I appreciate it. And we'll do another one in a couple weeks. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Derek.